Revelation is not the end, it is the unveiling of truth. Often, when people hear the word revelation, they think of destruction, judgment, and finality, the end of all things, but this interpretation is rooted in fear, and fear clouds perception. Revelation, in its essence, means to reveal, to uncover, to make known what was hidden. It is not the conclusion of life, but the exposure of what life has concealed. It is not the death of meaning, but the moment meaning is finally made clear. In this life, revelation becomes not a sentence, but a summons to awaken the truth, to see beyond illusion, to uncover the divine reality that has always been present yet veiled. When something is unveiled, it means that it was already there, waiting to be seen. The truths contained in the book of Revelation are not new. They are ancient and eternal, placed in front of us from the beginning. What changes is not the content, but our capacity to perceive. Our journey through Revelation, then, is not toward a distant future event, but inward toward the depths of our own awareness. It is a journey of clarity, of transformation, of spiritual sight. The end that many fear is not a physical end, but the end of ignorance, the end of deception, the end of spiritual blindness. What is truth, then, that revelation uncovers? It is the reality of divine order in the midst of worldly chaos. It is the sovereignty of the eternal amidst the rebellion of the temporal. It is the unveiling of Christ, not merely as a historical figure, but as a cosmic reality, present within the soul of every believer. Truth is not only a fact, it is a presence, a person, a power that pierces through the lies we have been told and the lies we have told ourselves. Revelation is the voice that says, "Now see what has always been true," and invites us to live in accordance with that truth. Many of the images in Revelation are frightening because they are unfamiliar. Dragons, beasts, bowls of wrath, cosmic battles, these seem like scenes from a dream or nightmare, but they are symbols. And symbols speak the language of the soul. They do not communicate to our logic, but to our spirit. They confront us with the reality that what is hidden within us must be faced. Revelation is not designed to scare us into belief, but to awaken us to the war within. A war between light and darkness, between clarity and confusion, between the spirit of truth and the spirit of deception. This battle is not just in the heavens. It is in our thoughts, our desires, our motives. To read Revelation as only a prediction of external events is to miss its deepest power, because while it does speak to history and destiny, it also speaks to identity. Who are you in this story? Where do you stand when truth is revealed? Are you among those who hide from the light or those who walk into it? Are you shaped by the fear of what is ending or the hope of what is beginning? Revelation peels away our defenses and demands an answer. Not from the world, from you, from me, from each soul individually called to see what truly is. Revelation is a mirror. It shows us not only what is to come, but what already is in us, around us, and above us. The Lamb on the throne is not only a future ruler, he is the present king of our hearts. The judgments are not only global, they are personal, weighing the intentions of every heart. The New Jerusalem is not just a city, it is the soul made pure, descending in full communion with the divine. Everything external in Revelation reflects something internal. The collapse of Babylon is not just the fall of a city, it is the fall of pride, corruption, and all systems that oppose truth. The plagues are not just disasters, they are purifications. The trumpet blasts are not just announcements, they are awakenings shaking us from sleep, Truth, when revealed, divides. It separates what is real from what is false, what is holy from what is profane. And that division, though painful, is merciful, because it allows us to choose. Before the unveiling, we live in confusion, believing lies, walking blindly. But once truth is seen, we are responsible. Revelation calls us to this responsibility, to no longer live as if we do not know, to no longer compromise with deception, to no longer hide behind tradition, fear, or indifference, to stand with eyes open, hearts surrendered, and lives aligned. This is why revelation matters, not because it gives us a timeline of doom, but because it gives us the opportunity to see, and seeing changes everything. The person who sees clearly no longer fears. They no longer serve the shadows. They are not shaken by storms because they have built on truth. Revelation gives us this foundation, a rock not just for the future, but for today, a vision not just of the end, but of the eternal. What happens when the veil is lifted is not destruction, it is clarity. The things that are burned away were never meant to remain. The things that endure were always eternal. The fire does not destroy the gold, it refines. The judgment does not condemn the faithful, it vindicates them. The throne does not intimidate those who know the King, it invites them. This is the true nature of revelation, not the end of life, but the restoration of life as it was always meant to be. So, we must not approach revelation with fear, but with humility, with a willingness to be shown what we have missed, with a desire not just to interpret the symbols, but to be transformed by them. Revelation is a journey, a sacred unveiling, and each step forward reveals more of the truth, not only about God, but about ourselves. It shows us what is eternal and what is passing. It calls us to release what cannot last and embrace what cannot die. In this unveiling, we are not merely spectators, we are participants. The choices we make now determine how we will stand when the truth is fully revealed. Will we be found clinging to the fading or rooted in the unshakable? Will we be hiding from the light or shining with it? Will we be part of the collapse or part of the kingdom that cannot be moved? Revelation is not just a book. It is a calling. It is not just prophecy. It is presence. It does not only tell us what will happen, it tells us what has always been true, and now it invites us to see. Every symbol in Revelation reflects an inner spiritual battle. When one begins to read the book of Revelation, it becomes clear that this is not an ordinary narrative. It is filled with images, metaphors, and visions that often defy straightforward understanding. But to those who approach it not just with intellect, but with spiritual discernment, a deeper layer emerges. These symbols are not random, nor are they only about external events. They are mirrors held up to the soul, designed to expose the struggles that take place within the human heart. The beasts, the dragons, the harlots, the seals, the scrolls, all these symbols reveal what is often invisible but very present, the unseen war between the flesh and the spirit, between truth and deception, between divine identity and human ego. The book does not speak only of future wars and coming judgments. It speaks of the daily war between light and darkness that every person faces within. When the 7 seals are opened, they do not just speak of judgment on the earth, but of the unveiling of what is hidden in the soul. The white horse may symbolize purity or conquest, but in the inner world it represents the initial urge to overcome, to rise with truth. The red horse of war, the black horse of famine, and the pale horse of death. They all point to the spiritual consequences of pride, greed, hatred, and fear. These forces are not confined to nations. They live in the depths of human desire, whispering in secret moments, shaping decisions and distorting reality. To recognize these symbols inwardly is to begin to wage the true battle. When the beast rises from the sea, it is not merely a global dictator. It is the manifestation of untamed desire, egoic power, and pride rising from the depths of the unconscious self. The sea represents chaos, the emotional and ungoverned realm. The beast is born when the soul ceases to be ruled by spirit and is overtaken by self, worship, and rebellion. This happens in small decisions, not grand political events. It is seen when the desire for power overrides compassion, when manipulation is chosen over truth, when fear becomes more persuasive than faith. This is the battlefield of the Spirit. Revelation paints it in symbols to show that it is no less dangerous than physical warfare. Likewise, the false prophet is not only a figure on a world stage, it is the voice of deception within. It is the whisper that justifies compromise, that twists truth for convenience, that tells you the wide path is easier, safer, and more acceptable. This inner voice leads people to build lives on illusions rather than truth. It promotes religion without transformation, knowledge without surrender, action without heart. Revelation exposes this false prophet not only to warn the world, but to warn the soul. It challenges each person to ask, what voice am I following? Am I led by truth, or by something that looks like truth but leads away from it? The harlot Babylon, adorned in luxury and filled with abominations, is not just a corrupt system or city. It is a spirit of seduction and idolatry. It lives in the heart whenever the pursuit of pleasure outweighs purity, when external beauty hides internal decay, when comfort becomes more valuable than conviction. Babylon teaches that the soul can be bought and sold. It teaches that compromise is profitable and that sacrifice is foolish. But Revelation shows that her fall is certain. That which is not rooted in truth cannot last. When judgment comes, all false foundations will crumble, and only what is real will remain. On the other side of this inner conflict stands the Lamb. The Lamb is not just Christ enthroned in heaven, but Christ enthroned in the heart of the believer. The Lamb is humility, purity, self, sacrifice, and unshakable truth. He does not fight with the weapons of the world, but with the power of love and the clarity of light. To follow the Lamb is to walk in surrender, to lay down pride, to choose obedience over ambition. It is not an easy path, for the Lamb's way leads through suffering and self-denial, but it is the only path that leads to victory. Revelation shows that those who overcome are those who have washed their robes in the blood of the Lamb, not those who were perfect, but those who chose surrender again and again, even when it cost them everything. The angels that fly across the sky in Revelation are messengers of truth. Their appearance reminds us that in every spiritual battle, help is given. Divine clarity breaks through the chaos. The trumpet blasts are not only judgments, they are wake-up calls. They break illusions and stir the sleeping soul. They call humanity to return, to repent, to realign. Each trumpet represents a moment in life when something shakes us, loss, crisis, revelation, forcing us to confront what we've ignored. These are not punishments. They are mercy disguised as disruption. They are moments when truth refuses to be silenced. The war in heaven, where Michael and his angels fight the dragon, reflects a war that plays out in every soul seeking to ascend. The dragon is the accuser, the tempter, the liar, and the destroyer. He attacks identity, plants doubt, spreads fear, but the victory comes not by human effort, but by the blood of the Lamb and the word of testimony. This testimony is not just words, it is a life lived in truth. The dragon is cast down when the believer refuses to agree with lies any longer. When light is chosen, darkness loses power. When truth is declared, deception is disarmed. This symbolic language speaks deeply to the spiritual journey. Revelation becomes a map, showing us where we are, what we must confront, and what we are promised if we endure. Every symbol invites reflection. Where is the beast in me? Where is the false prophet's voice? Where does Babylon tempt my soul? And then, where is the Lamb in me? Where is the call to rise, to see, to stand? The power of revelation is that it gives meaning to struggle. It does not pretend the journey is easy. It shows pain, tribulation, and opposition, but it also reveals that everything has purpose. Every battle within, every temptation resisted, every tear shed for truth. It all moves us toward the throne, toward the New Jerusalem, toward the eternal reality where there is no more death, no more deception, and no more division between God and man. In this journey, Revelation offers both warning and hope. It warns that ignoring the inner battle leads to destruction, but it also offers hope, that the battle can be won, that every soul can overcome, that the Lamb has already made the way. Each symbol becomes a guidepost, not to decode the future, but to understand the present, not to feed fear, but to ignite faith, not to overwhelm, but to awaken. Every symbol in Revelation speaks because every soul is being spoken to. The book is alive because the battle is alive, and when we begin to see these images as more than prophecy, as personal reflections of our own spiritual condition, we begin to walk the path of transformation. Revelation ceases to be a mystery and becomes a mirror. It ceases to be a threat and becomes an invitation to overcome, to endure, to follow the Lamb wherever he goes, and to become what we were always created to be, victorious, pure, and eternal. Awakening requires confrontation with fear, not escape from it. True spiritual growth never occurs in comfort zones. It is forged in the fires of challenge, in the presence of uncertainty, and in the grip of fear. Fear is not the enemy of awakening, it is the doorway to it. Many people live their entire lives trying to avoid fear, building routines, creating safety, and choosing the familiar, all in an effort to never have to face what frightens them. But revelation, in all its vivid intensity, does not allow for escape. It demands confrontation. It brings to the surface the deepest fears that humanity holds: the fear of judgment, the fear of suffering, the fear of loss, the fear of being seen and known fully. Yet it is precisely through this confrontation that awakening begins. There is no growth without facing what we fear. Fear reveals our limits, but also points to our hidden chains. When fear rises, it is not only to intimidate, it is also to illuminate. It shows us where we have not yet trusted, where we are still controlled by illusion, where we have built walls to protect what must be surrendered. Awakening is the process of tearing down these walls, not recklessly, but consciously, courageously, knowing that what lies beyond them is freedom. The images in Revelation are terrifying only to the part of us that still clings to this world, but to the part of us that is eternal, these images are not curses, they are keys. Keys to unlock the spirit from the prison of fear. The reason awakening cannot come through escape is because the very things we run from are the things we must heal. Running reinforces the lie that fear is stronger than truth. Avoidance strengthens the chains we secretly wish to break. But when we stand in the presence of what we fear, whether it is loss, failure, rejection, or the unknown, and we choose to remain, to feel, to listen, to stay awake, something changes. The power of fear begins to dissolve, its illusion fades, and in its place, a deeper awareness arises, the awareness that we are more than the fear, that we are not defined by it, that there is something within us greater than what threatens us. Revelation shows this truth again and again. The dragon seeks to devour, the beast seeks to dominate, the judgments roar across the earth, but those who endure, those who do not bow, those who do not run, they are the ones who overcome. They do not overcome by might or by manipulation, but by standing in truth, by bearing witness, by refusing to deny what they know. Even unto death they are not moved, because they have already faced fear and chosen love. Love for truth, love for the Lamb, love for what is eternal. This is the real victory, not to escape suffering, but to transcend it, not to avoid fear, but to walk through it and come out with eyes wide open. Awakening is the process of becoming who you truly are, but who you truly are is hidden beneath layers of conditioning, programming, and inherited beliefs. These layers must be peeled away, and that peeling is often painful. The pain, however, is not punishment, it is purification. It is the fire that refines. Revelation does not sugarcoat this process. It shows us the shaking, the falling, the burning away of what cannot last. And in doing so, it teaches us that fear is not to be avoided but embraced, not as a friend, but as a messenger that says, here is your next gate, your next trial, your next lesson. Here is the path forward, not around, but through. When the seals are opened and the trumpets sound, the earth trembles. But that trembling is a picture of the soul under transformation. Everything false must fall. Every idol must be shattered. Every lie must be exposed. And each of these moments requires courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to move despite it. The heroes of Revelation are not those who felt no fear, they are those who did not let fear decide for them. They were awakened because they did not flinch. They were transformed because they faced what others fled. They saw the beast, they heard the thunder, and they still stood. Fear tries to convince us that safety is found in silence, in compromise, in remaining small. But Revelation shouts the opposite. It tells us that true safety is in surrender not to fear, but to truth. The moment we surrender to truth, we begin to awaken. The moment we stop running from what we feel and begin to understand it, fear loses its grip. We no longer interpret it as a signal to retreat, but as a signal to examine, to question, to go deeper. What is this fear revealing about what I believe? What is it showing me about where my trust lies? What part of me is still in bondage and what part is ready to be free? There is no awakening without awareness, and there is no awareness without facing fear. Fear blocks the inner eye, it clouds perception. But once confronted, once held in the light of spirit, it becomes transparent. We see through it, and beyond it, we see ourselves not as broken, but as breaking free. We begin to see the Lamb not as a distant figure, but as a presence within. We begin to hear the trumpet not as a threat, but as a call. We begin to understand the fire not as destruction, but as illumination. The call of Revelation is the call to awaken not someday, but now. But now always begins in a moment of choice. The choice to stay awake when it would be easier to numb. The choice to feel the fear and not flee. The choice to say yes to the unknown. to follow the Lamb wherever he goes, even when the road leads through fire, through storms, through valleys of shadow, because on the other side is clarity, on the other side is freedom, on the other side is the you that was always waiting to be revealed. Fear is not a wall, it is a veil, and veils can be lifted. Fear is not your enemy, it is your invitation. Every beast you face, every storm you endure, every trumpet that awakens your soul is bringing you closer to the truth of who you are. This is the secret revelation, holds not that fear is coming, but that fear can be conquered, not by force, but by faith, not by retreat, but by resolve. The Lamb's blood is not just a symbol of forgiveness, it is a declaration that the battle has already been won. You need only to stand in that victory, to believe it, to embody it, and so awakening begins, not in the absence of fear, but in the presence of it, not in escape, but in encounter, not in silence, but in surrender. Every moment you confront what frightens you and choose truth instead, you awaken a little more. You rise a little higher. You shine a little brighter. Revelation becomes your map, not of terror, but of triumph. And your life becomes the journey of a soul that refused to run and chose instead to rise. The true journey begins when inner eyes are opened. There are many who walk through life with open physical eyes, yet remain spiritually blind. They see the world, its systems, its demands, its pleasures, and its fears, but they do not perceive the deeper reality beneath it all. Revelation is not simply about what is happening externally. It is about the unveiling of what has always been hidden in plain sight. It is about removing the scales from the eyes of the soul so that the person can finally see what matters, what is eternal, what is true. This awakening does not begin with information. It begins with transformation. And transformation happens the moment one's inner sight is restored. Throughout the book of Revelation, there is a repeated emphasis on seeing. John does not merely hear a message, he sees visions. He does not just receive instructions, he is shown realities. The angel does not simply tell him truths, the angel reveals them. This pattern is not incidental, it is instructional, because the spiritual journey does not truly begin when one starts following rules or doctrines. It begins when one begins to see beyond surface, to see through illusion, to see the spiritual essence of things, of people, of circumstances, and most of all, of oneself. Opening the inner eyes means recognizing that everything physical is a shadow of something spiritual. Every conflict in the world reflects a deeper conflict in the heavens and in the soul. Every system of oppression or deception in society mirrors the inner strongholds that keep individuals bound. Babylon is not only a city, it is a condition of the heart. The beast is not just a figure in prophecy, it is pride and ego manifested in every age. To see this clearly is to awaken, and once you begin to see, you cannot unsee. You begin to read life differently. Every trial becomes a test, every delay becomes a lesson, every wound becomes a message. You stop being a victim of life and begin to walk as a participant in a divine story. The person whose inner eyes are closed walks in darkness, even in daylight. They may have achievements, wealth, or even religious knowledge, but they lack perception. They do not discern the battle over their soul. They do not recognize the spiritual implications of their choices. They live for the temporary because they are blind to the eternal, but when the inner eyes are opened, values shift, priorities change. What once seemed important becomes meaningless, and what was once ignored becomes sacred. This is not the result of force, It is the result of vision. When John describes the throne room in heaven, when he sees the Lamb, when he witnesses the scrolls and the angels and the multitudes, he is not hallucinating. He is seeing reality, a reality that exists whether or not one believes in it. The same is true for each person. The spiritual world is not imaginary. It is the foundation of all that is. But to enter it, to understand it, requires more than intellect. It requires inner sight, and that sight is given to those who are willing to look inward before they look outward. The journey of revelation is a journey of clarity. The deeper you go, the more clearly you see. But clarity is not always comfortable. It reveals truths that challenge the ego, expose hidden motives, and confront long-held beliefs. The opening of inner eyes is often painful because it reveals the gap between who you are and who you were created to be. But this is where the journey begins, not when everything makes sense, but when you are willing to see things as they are and not as you wish them to be. Spiritual blindness is not a lack of exposure to truth. It is a resistance to it. It is the choice to see only what benefits the self. But when one surrenders that resistance, when one chooses humility over pride, the eyes of the heart begin to open, and what is seen cannot be forgotten. The Lamb on the throne becomes not a distant deity but a present king. The seals, the judgments, the visions, they cease to be just symbols of destruction and begin to be recognized as steps of purification. The final judgment becomes a revealing of what has always been known in heaven, and the New Jerusalem becomes not just a future promise, but a present invitation to live differently. Opening the inner eyes is not a one-time event. It is a daily posture. Every day presents opportunities to see more deeply, to perceive more clearly, to discern more truly. It is easy to become distracted, to let the noise of the world drown out the still, small voice of truth. But the one who is awake continues to seek, to listen, to return. Revelation is not just the eternal weight behind each choice, and this clarity leads to courage, courage to stand, to speak, to walk the narrow path, even when others mock or misunderstand. You are no longer guided by public opinion, but by divine insight. This journey, once begun, it will always long for the light. This is why Revelation stirs the heart of those who read it with open eyes. It does not simply when your eyes are opened, you begin to rejoice in the judgments because they clear the way for what is holy. You no longer cling to Babylon because you see its fall as necessary. You no longer fear the fire because you see that it purifies. You no longer resist the Lamb because you see his wounds and recognize your healing. The true journey, then, is not geographical or historical. It is internal. It begins the moment you stop looking outward for salvation and begin looking inward for sight. The Lamb is within. The throne is within. The book is within. The choice is yours, to remain asleep in the comforts of blindness or to awaken to the brilliance of truth. Revelation stands as a light, waiting to be seen, not just with the eyes of the mind, but with the eyes of the soul. And when you truly see, the journey begins, not toward destruction, but toward destiny, not toward an end, but toward eternity.